Social media is full of UFO pictures, images captured on people's phones. We live in an amazing time in history where everybody has a phone in their back pocket. But given all this technology, why are images of UFOs such poor quality? Today, let's explore with an expert how to take the ultimate UFO photograph.
That's a helicopter?
That's what it
Is that a helicopter?
There's 8 aliens in it.
Hey everybody, and welcome back for a fantastic
That
show.
week.
Guess who we have? Stu Little. Stuart is a professional photographer, a filmmaker, and very interested in phenomenon, and knows how to photograph a UFO and all the pitfalls. So Stuart, photographing a UFO or a phenomenon or something unusual, it's really hard. People send me, and I'm so pleased they do, they share images, usually single point light sources. And today, modern technology is the phone. Gone are amateur cameras. You're either a professional or you have a phone. And there is an enormous issue with compression. What is it? And why is a phone a particularly bad thing as a camera to photograph a single point light source? And how can people do it better?
Well, let's take it one stage at a time. The fact that you're using a phone usually means that it's in your back pocket, or it's in your handbag, or it's in your jacket pocket.
Right.
So the first thing to do to get a better image of a potential UFO or UAP, or whatever you want to call it, is to clean the lens. That is really key.
Right.
Because the amount of people that end up shooting blurry or hazy video because they just haven't cleaned the lens, wiped it on their jumper, whatever it needs to happen.
I love it.
So cleaning the lens is a big thing. That instantly brings your quality level up. After that, whether you're using Android or whether you're using iPhone, the built-in app usually is more than enough. What I would say is, if possible, record in 4K rather than 1080p, because then you've basically got a larger sampling to work from.
Right.
And then from there, it's just a case of shooting as high a frame rate as you can possibly get. So don't be the filmmaker that's shooting 24 frames per second. You want to be shooting at 60 frames a second, because then there's more data, effectively, more frames that you can then break down and go frame by frame to capture the object. And by doing that, automatically, usually phones increase the shutter speed. But it depends on how you're photographing it and when you're photographing it as well, in terms of the light quality. If it's bright daylight, brilliant, because chances are it's going to be a really high shutter speed, and that gives us UFO people loads of data to work with. If it's late at night and it's a low light situation, it's going to go the opposite way, and you're going to end up with something that's blurry and streaky. In that case, what you've got to do is make sure that the phone is as still as possible.
Right.
And keep locked on to the subject. Don't be panning away to the house or the car. It's okay to maybe have something in the frame that gives a sort of side reference.
Right.
You know, a bit of scale. Because sometimes if you're videoing something and it's literally like a blue sky or a black sky and you've got no sense of scale whatsoever, then that's going to be difficult for somebody like me who's going to be analysing the footage to kind of work out how large something is. So if there's trees or a telephone pole in the corner or a bit of a house or even somebody's head in the corner, as long as it's not obstructing the object that you're actually filming, then that's going to be really, really sort of a good sound grab for you in terms of having a point of scale, a point of reference.
Brilliant advice. clean that lens, hold it still, and get a wide shot, as you say, Stuart, for reference. If it's got a church spire, well, that will give some clue maybe of elevation and of size. But I have a much bigger fundamental issue, and that is I'm old school. I used to shoot film. These digital cameras, and especially phones, have to compress the image so much. When it's a low light source, you get these weird things called compression artifacts. What are they,
right, yeah.
and why is that happening on a phone camera?
Basically, what's happening is two things with phones. First of all, the actual capture point, the sensor size, is extremely small. Even on the best smartphones that have what they call 1-inch sensors, the likes of the Sony Xperia brand, they are still really, really small compared to 35mm or larger. So all that light information is being crammed into a very, very small space.
Right.
Then the manufacturer, whether it be Samsung, Apple, Huawei, whatever, they are then looking at it from a consumer point of view, and they want to be able to allow you to shoot as much video and cram it all into what little memory they can sell you for as expensive as possible.
Right.
So by doing that, sadly, the quality level basically goes down and you get these artifacts. And what they basically are, in the simplest terms,
right,
is when a video is being captured, if there's parts of the scene where the scene does not change, let's say a black sky or a pure blue sky, then there's a little bit of algorithmic magic done, and the camera throws away that data, chucks it away, deletes it, and then artificially adds it back in when you're then playing the video back at a later stage. So you've got a couple of things going on. In low light situations, you've got what we would call traditionally noise in the image. It's more actually a digital gain, a sensitivity to light, and the fact of it has to increase its sensitivity, so there's more noise in it with that. But on top of that, you've also got digital artifacts going on as well. And there's not a lot you can actually do about it. If you're filming something in daylight, you're not going to get as much artifacts and compression as you would do if it was in low light and at night time. And sadly, the majority of the time that people tend to capture these things tends to be at night. And they tend to sort of misidentify things an awful lot. So
yeah, it's a great shame, because I really encourage people to photograph things. We live in a world now with, as you said, clearly a phone in your back pocket, and crowdsourcing phenomenon and photographing it is so important. But this advice from you today is absolutely invaluable. We need to do it better. We need to get a reference wide shot, clean the lens, and understand.
Do you want me to show you? Do you want me to do a demonstration?
Oh, of course. Stuart,
Right,
that would be thank you.
Okay, so first of all, make sure your lenses are nice and clean. And this is an old iPhone 11. You also want to hold the phone as securely as possible. None of this fingers out at the corners, because that makes it very shaky. You want to basically encase your phone and have it just so that the lenses are being shown. You want to tuck your elbows into your sides so that basically you're being as supported as possible, and bring your shoulders back nice and steady. And in that way, when you're moving, you're not moving your wrists like this. You're actually going to move your whole body. That gives a much cleaner, like, pan or tilt or whatever. Literally move your whole body as if you're one with the camera. And that's just like an actual, DOP or camera operator would do on a film set or anything like that. So tuck in, nice grip, and basically record from there. And you've got a thumb effectively loose for pressing record or stop or whatever. And that, you do these things and shoot where possible at 60 frames a second. I wouldn't bother trying to do slow motion or anything like that. 120 frames, 240 frames. far, far, far too high a frame rate. You need an awful lot of light. It's fine in daylight and really bright midday sun, you could get away with it. But at nighttime, shooting high frame rate stuff at 120, 240, you're just not going to get anything. 60's pushing it at nighttime.
Right.
You maybe even want to bring it down to, I think the default on most phones is 30. You or I would probably try and shoot it at 24 frames a second because we're filmmakers, and that's the traditional speed of filmmaking. But when it comes to UFO stuff, 60 frames per second is much better, because then there's 60 bits of information that we can then play back frame by frame by frame and get the sharpest possible image.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice. And I would like to add one piece of advice from me as do not use digital zoom because what you're doing is actually blowing up. Point. Yeah.
Keep to what they call the optical zoom.
Right.
Don't go past, if it says 2 times optical, you go to 2 times. If you go to 10 times or 20 times or 30 times on the likes of an iPhone, then all you're doing is cropping into the video, and you can actually do that. We can do that in post-production a lot better and sharpen it up correctly to get as much detail out of it as possible, rather than you doing it in camera. Apart from anything else, when you narrow the field of view digitally, everything becomes really, really shaky very, very quickly.
Right.
So keep to as wide as possible. Obviously, if you've got a camera that shoots with a telephoto lens, like the iPhone 11, it's got an ultra wide, it's got a wide, and it's got the telephoto. You're still better staying with the wide because that's the one that has the best quality lens.
Oh, okay.
If you go to the telephoto, it's actually a slower lens. It doesn't gather as much light. Same with the ultra wide. The ultra wide is not going to help you. The telephoto actually would not be as good as it would be with the wide. You want to gather as much information as possible. So it's better to just use the stock standard lens that it starts with and steady yourself as best as possible and film it at 60 frames a second. And with that, we should see people capturing much better UFOs.
Oh, yeah, I can't wait to see images. I do prefer the highly strange image at daytime. There is always a problem with what I call single point light sources, especially if there isn't a wide shot reference, because we don't know what they are. There could be a landing light, there could be Venus. But the other thing, which is a real bugbear of mine, and I think this needs us together as filmmakers to explain to people, is post-production. I've seen people who have inputted a single point light source into an amateur piece of editing software, zoomed it in, contrast enhanced it, and what has been revealed are geometric artifacts, which to the untrained might appear to be a geometric shape of a odd craft. But you and I both know that they're compression artifacts, and don't be confused. What do you say about that?
Very true. There's actually a documentary on Prime. I'm not going to name it, but it's easily found. It's available right now. And literally, the young lady who created the documentary, it's actually well filmed. But the problem is, she does exactly that.
Zoomed in.
And what you're seeing is basically aberrations, artifacts, and all sorts of things that she then interprets as being, beings communicating in a certain way, and it's just a load of nonsense. If you really want to get into the whole UFO, UAP, and recording with your phone, I would recommend downloading a third-party app. There's loads out there. My favourite's Filmmaker Pro, and what that allows you to do is open up the individual pixels and record the best quality you can get. I can record ProRAW on my phone, and that gives me the highest quality, and in some cases higher than what you would get off of an actual DSLR or a mirrorless camera or something like that. And that gives you the best chance of capturing.
Oh, that's amazing. The software, you and I both shoot what we are called RAW, so it's less or not compressed, but the file sizes are massive, which we can deal with. But you're saying that there's a phone software that will extract the raw data from the sensor for you to to which isn't then put together just to be on the iPhone or camera phone screen to look pretty and sharp and bright and colorful, but you can actually extract the raw data.
Yep, with Filmic Pro, you can shoot a true logarithmic video. It's as raw as it possibly can be. They bypass all of Apple's pipeline in the way the video is actually captured. So whereas there's a lot of, shall we say, Apple magic or even Samsung magic, Android magic going on in the phone after the fact. A good example of that with Samsung lately is they've been selling, I think, their Galaxy S23 and promoting it as being able to capture videos, photos of the moon. And what they ended up actually doing was artificially overlaying stock shots of the moon.
No.
And yeah, it was a big sort of to do about it. So what they were basically doing is that because the moon doesn't move, and we always see the correct side, and obviously it's the inverse if you live in Australia, southern hemisphere.
Oh yeah.
If you're in the southern, this is how they get caught out. If they're in the southern hemisphere, it's upside down. And what happened was somebody from, I think, Singapore or somewhere, or Australia, came to the US, to North America, tried to photograph the moon, and all of a sudden got an upside-down version of the moon.
With their Southern Hemisphere camera.
Yes. So
that is priceless story. So it recognized that you were at night. It recognized that there was a large or quite a small disc. It was probably the moon, and it inserted a piece of clip art. Oh, don't tell me.
In the roughest sense, yes, because people were actually like shining torches that were gaffer taped to their TVs.
You could
and literally. Yeah, you could literally trick it into thinking that was the moon. So I think Samsung quickly sorted the whole where the phone would be, wouldn't really, it only knows GPS-wise to flick it or not flick it the right way. And it didn't get caught out.
They would be smart to know the geolocation of the photographer. But anyway, that's fantastic.
So they got busted. Yeah.
I'm sure they did. What would you say is the big difference? I'm old enough to remember celluloid and film and grain structure.
Me too.
Yeah, I know you are. That's great. And we love it.
I'm older than I look.
Sure. Aren't we all? I'm younger than I look. What's the resolution of 35mm film compared with a phone, for example? I mean, obviously there's full frame professional digital cameras, which are incredible. But if you had a 35mm holiday camera, which doesn't exist anymore, or you had a phone, what would perform better in a well-lit situation, and why?
If you were talking about 35mm film, which is becoming more popular again.
It is.
It's definitely making a comeback, which is wonderful to see.
Right.
But literally, 35mm is a sort of rectangular shape.
Right.
A phone sensor is one tiny little corner. It's tiny, absolutely tiny. And it crams in all of the same pixels. So there's always been this thing about megapixels, the pixel war between all the different camera manufacturers and now phone manufacturers and that. But the problem we've got is if the sensor is small and it's not very big at all, and it says it's like 4K, it's basically cramming 4,000 pixels or whatever across into a very small space. Whereas you can have a 40 megapixel phone and a 12 megapixel phone. And if the 12 megapixels phone, actual photo sites, the sensors, the little squares that make up the sensor as a whole, are bigger, they will capture more light. Whereas
so I think we've been slightly tricked by marketing. I mean, I think two things that I see is that I think people think digital cameras are now, for most people, phones, and first of all, they're not very analogous to the way humans see. And second of all, we've been told all these megapixels, these super, and in fact, it's all about compression algorithm, and it's not how we see. And they're particularly bad at photographing the unusual, wouldn't you say? but it's worthwhile doing it.
Pretty much. It's better to capture something than not capture.
Yeah.
Another thing that's important that a lot of people don't take into account is the audio. Making sure you can capture nice, clean audio and don't block your microphones, because you might pick something up in the audio, and the likes of the smartphone audio, whether it be Android or iPhone or whatever, they're pretty smart bits of kit. So an audio expert might be able to pull out sounds that you didn't even hear.
Right.
So it's probably, and you'll know this yourself, you know, when it comes to filmmaking, 50% is obviously the visual, but the other 50% is good audio.
As a sound designer, I would say 80.
Okay.
80 audio. Yeah, we had this amazing thing. We saw a satellite re-entering with burning flames coming out of it, and green, obviously, from copper. And it was entirely silent until it disappeared to about the horizon line, where there was a tremendous sonic boom. It was, you know, eventually it reached us. So a professional analyzer of the strange like you, Stuart, would have said, oh, I've got the boom, I've got the picture, I can work out time, space, and distance from that. So I hadn't thought about it. Audio is a brilliant idea. Yeah, good tip.
You've got to capture good audio where possible as well. And by all means, give a commentary. Tell people what you're seeing, because how the camera captures it versus to what your eye can see it is two different things.
Right.
So be as descriptive as possible. You know, guesstimate the size where you can.
Yeah.
99% of the time, we all get it wrong, but at least you've given a good guesstimate. And if you've got something, as I said earlier, that's to scale in the video in the bottom corner or somewhere, it can help actually analyze and work things out.
Say where you are, you know, say, I'm in Bear's Den and I'm facing north and it's 8 o'clock at night. Hey, I know where you are suddenly, and we can work out what you could have
direction, even if that's not included when we put that out on YouTube for privacy purposes.
Right.
It's good information to have.
Yeah.
So your location, the direction in which you're facing. So obviously, if the sun is to your left, you're going to be, it's at night time, you're going to be facing north. If the sun's to your right and it's, you know, headed for sunset, you're going to be facing south.
Good tip.
So just, you know, the basics there. But yeah, capture as much audio, describe as much as you can possibly see. If you've got other witnesses around you, ID them as well. So that, you know, even if it's somebody you don't know and they've literally just walked up and stood next to you, say, what's your name? Can you see this as well?
Oh,
because it just helps build up a picture of what's going on, and it helps with any investigations.
Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could kind of upload anything that we see here in France? CNRS, the Center of Scientific Research, has an open website where you can upload anything, and it's given a kind of a rating of probably identifiable, unexplained or highly strange, with a map of France. And it's interactive. You can see clusters, you can get statistical data. I want that worldwide, because I'm getting a bit fed up with the USA seeming to be the main people who have UAP experiences. UAPs, if they're genuinely from another planet, are going to be in Namibia and Neasden. They're not only going to be in a farmer's field in Wisconsin. So I fantasize about an app that can actually put all this together and actually get statistical data over time. That would be brilliant.
I think that's a brilliant idea. I mean, I know certainly there's people that MUFON in the US.
Right.
I think there's an Australian version, there's a British version, and they obviously take in information and try and investigate where possible. But if you were able to sort of upload everything that we've talked about to an app, and the sightings were locked in and said this happened at this time, and you effectively fill out a data form with all the information and the snippet of video, I think that would be absolutely superb. France is very forward thinking when it comes to UAP, UFO stuff. They have been for years and years and years. They've been quite open about it.
Yep.
The UK because we are very much the old alliance with the US, we kind of keep quiet as much as possible.
We need
So-
social media science. We need people to keep photographing the strange and report what they've seen. But with professional advice that you've just given of how it works, why a camera isn't exactly the same as our eyes work, take decent pictures, get a wide shot, clean your lens, understand your phone, think about frame rate, think about video quality. Oh, if you can only upload it and extract the data as raw, and then share it with Stuart, and he will look at it and give you a genuine response. I thank you very much for today. I think people do need to share their stuff, but they do need to understand how to take the picture better, because there are strange things out there.